Imagine you are in the middle of a night flight. The cabin lights dim, and your eyes accidentally lock onto the number changing on the screen in front of you. 36,000 feet. Have you ever wondered why almost every time you fly, that number seems to repeat in such a strange way? Not 15,000 feet, where you could clearly see the city below, and not 70,000 feet, where it might feel like touching space. The sky looks endless. But strangely, thousands of aircraft out there are flying inside a rather narrow band of air, as if an invisible corridor had already been drawn across the sky. So why? Why do airplanes not fly lower where it is easier to breathe? Why not fly higher to avoid bad weather? And what would happen if a commercial aircraft tried to climb too high? Welcome to Everyday Things Explained. Today, we will decode the sky's invisible ceiling. The price of air. Let's begin with the most practical reason: money. In aviation, fuel can make up as much as 30% of operating costs. And the greatest enemy of fuel is air resistance. Close to the ground, the air is very dense. Pushing a giant aircraft through it is like trying to push open a large door against a strong headwind. The door can still open, but you need far more strength. For an airplane, more strength means the engines must work harder and fuel burns faster. But as the aircraft climbs, air molecules become more spread out. At 35,000 feet, the air is nearly 3 times thinner than it is at ground level. Less drag means the aircraft can fly faster while consuming less fuel. This is the first wall of the invisible room: fuel. The aircraft wants to climb higher to save money. But the sky is not an endless upward slope. The moment it tries to climb even higher, the second wall appears. When the engine runs out of breath. You might think a jet engine is a self-sufficient machine, but in reality, it is a giant metal lung. It needs to breathe in oxygen to burn fuel. The higher you climb, the thinner the air becomes. That means less oxygen for combustion. If the aircraft climbs too high, this lung begins to run out of breath. Power drops sharply, and the engine may shut down completely in mid-flight. At the same time, the wings also run into trouble. Lift is created when airflow clings to the surface of the wing. But if the air is too thin, there is almost nothing left for the wing to grip. To avoid falling, the aircraft is forced to fly very fast and very hard, so enough of that thin air is forced over the wings, and this is where the prison becomes narrow and frightening. Coffin Corner. Inside the cockpit, pilots must always watch for a deadly trap called Coffin Corner. This is where the invisible room squeezes so tightly there is no room left for mistakes. Imagine the floor beneath you is stall speed. Because the air is too thin, this floor keeps rising as you climb higher. If the aircraft flies below this floor, it falls, and the ceiling above you is the Mach limit. At high altitude, temperature drops deeply, so the speed of sound drops as well. If the aircraft flies too fast and touches this ceiling, shock waves can destroy lift and shake the airplane so violently it can break apart. At 35,000 feet, the space between the floor and ceiling is still wide enough for pilots to operate comfortably. But if you try to climb to 45,000 or 50,000 feet, those two lines begin closing in until the space feels suffocating. Fly just 1 mile an hour too slowly, and you fly 1 mile an hour too fast, and the aircraft breaks. That is a prison no one wants to be trapped inside. Commercial aircraft stay around 36,000 feet to keep that room wide enough and safe. 15 seconds to survive. Surprisingly, the greatest limit is not the metal. It is you, the passengers inside the cabin. Human beings were not designed to survive at the altitude where airplanes fly. Outside the window, the pressure is so low that your blood cannot hold oxygen properly. The aircraft cabin is essentially a pressurized bubble, inflated so you can breathe normally, If a window breaks at 40,000 feet, you may have only 15 to 20 seconds before losing consciousness from lack of oxygen. Experts call this useful consciousness time. So when a flight attendant says to put on your own mask first, that is the ultimate rule of survival. At that altitude, your body shuts down faster than a phone with an empty battery. Flying around 35,000 feet gives pilots enough time to dive the aircraft down into thicker air. But if the aircraft is flying too high, that descent becomes too long and too dangerous. The sky is not empty. Finally, this altitude is also a matter of global order. The sky is not empty. It is divided into strict flight layers, so thousands of aircraft do not collide with one another. You may notice that an airplane does not hold one altitude for the entire flight. Right after takeoff, the aircraft is very heavy because it is full of fuel. After flying for a while, fuel decreases, the aircraft becomes lighter, and it can climb to a higher layer to save even more. So, the 36,000 feet on your screen is not random. It is the perfect intersection of four invisible walls: fuel, engines, aerodynamics, and human safety. It is the place where reality and physics briefly agree, so you can have a smooth journey. That number is no longer dry data. It is a quiet miracle of modern aviation engineering. The number is no longer meaningless. The next time you look out the window, remember that you are inside an invisible room calculated precisely down to the millimeter. It is the only sweet spot where we can drink a cup of coffee while traveling at 900 kilometers per hour. And if one small number can hide that many secrets, then ask yourself this: why are airplane windows always rounded and never square? In aviation, corners are sometimes not just a matter of style. They are a matter of survival. Thank you for joining Everyday Things Explained. I'll see you again.